Camello, who's going to be late but plans to attend, and Ms. Manzelli is going to be late and not sure how late, if she's going to make it or not. So, but the rest of us are here, so we can go ahead and move forward. So we got 15 minutes for public comments. If there's a member of public, step right up to the mic. Just make sure it's on. Sometimes you have to turn it off and back on. And then just tell us your name and your street.
Okay. I'm wicked nervous. Sorry, I didn't think I'd have to be here. Oh, sorry, I'm wicked nervous. I didn't think I'd have to be here.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Noelle Byron, and I live on Turnpike Street. And I do believe Ms. Sherman is well aware of my problem here tonight. So
Noelle.
I had to write a little speech because I'm nervous. I'm sorry. So I'm here tonight to not only ask for my bus stop to be put back, but to also address concerns over Linda from Dale Transportation threatening to remove the Turnpike Street stop from all bus routes going forward because she was angry that I wanted to know why she removed our bus stop, and then I was concerned for my daughter's safety to walk to Millard Street. Linda's exact words to me were, well, maybe I'll just take Turnpike away altogether next year and your daughter can walk to the top of Turnpike and Main Street, or maybe I'll even make it Kimball and Main Street instead. Linda was fully aware that my daughter is 8 years old when she made that statement. This is the person who you, as the SAU 53 district, trust our children to get to school safely. As a person who transfers decisions for our children out of spite and anger, that concerns me. I live at 26 Turnpike Street, which has always been our bus stop for the 3 years we've lived here, until this school year, the 2023-2024 school year. Our bus stop was removed and replaced with a stop at Millard and Turnpike. We are currently the only family on Turnpike with kids who ride the bus. When I asked Linda why she removed our stop, I was given 3 different excuses. The first one being the construction at Turnpike and Main Street, which makes 0 sense because my house is closer to Turnpike and Glass Street than it is Turnpike and Main Street. The construction had no impact on my bus stop, and the construction is also complete. Linda then stated she took my stop away because she remembers driving Turnpike Street in the winter, and Turnpike Street is a dangerous street to drive in the winter. The irony in that statement, considering the entire reason I asked for my stop to be put back and why I'm here tonight, is because it is entirely too dangerous for my 8-year-old to be walking up Turnpike Street to Millard Street. As you can clearly see, I kind of have an issue walking, and I cannot, on some days, walk her to that bus stop, more days than not. The final reason she gave, after I gave very valid reasons for why her first 2 excuses were not valid, was, and I quote, because I can. This again is the person that you as the SAU 53 school district has put in charge of making sure that our children get to and from school safely. The bus driver, Jen, also agrees with me and told me that when she asked Linda why our stop was taken off, she was told that Linda thought my house was the large white house at the corner of Main and Turnpike. That house is 2 Turnpike Street. I live at 26 Turnpike Street. So as you see, Linda had 0 legitimate reasons for removing my stop. And when she was questioned by myself and the bus driver about it, she became irate and has now begun acting out in spite. I would even go as far as to say vengeance, because we dared to question her. With my daughter only being 8 years old, walking up to Millard Street causes a major safety risk for her. Her bus driver, Miss Jen, also agrees with me that this is a safety issue for her to walk to Millard and has tried several times to have Linda put our stop back on. Miss Jen is also perfectly fine with stopping at my house all winter long, so that is not an issue either. The Millard Turnpike Street stop picks up on the side of Turnpike Street where there are no sidewalks, nor are there any crosswalks on Turnpike at all. This means my 8-year-old daughter will have to cross the road 4 times, twice at each stop, or she'll have to walk in the road on our side of Turnpike Street to get to Millard for the bus. During the winter months, the city of Pembroke does not maintain the only sidewalk on Turnpike Street properly. I often see the high school kids, as well as other people in general, walking in the middle of the road down Turnpike Street because the sidewalk is unusable due to the snow or ice that is covering it. So during the winter months, my daughter will most likely have to walk up the road to get to the Millard Street bus stop. In addition to the issue of her having to walk in the road, there's also the concern of her being hit by a car that is coming down Turnpike from Main Street when the roads are slippery and even when they're not. Turnpike is a hill, which means a vehicle coming down Turnpike who loses control and skids down Turnpike Street can very well hit my child even with her on the sidewalk. Even Linda stated that Turnpike Street is not safe in the winter because it's a hill that doesn't get maintained very well during the winter. Linda's own statement as to one of the reasons why she removed my stop points out the very reason I am here tonight asking for my stop to be put back. In 2021, New Hampshire had 9 pedestrian deaths. In 2022, New Hampshire had 16 pedestrian deaths. That's an increase of 7 pedestrian deaths, almost double the number in 1 year. In 2023, so far, New Hampshire has seen 17 pedestrian deaths. The data of the number of pedestrians hit by vehicles but recovered from their injuries does not seem to be tracked, or not that I can find. So the numbers I gave you only account for those who died. Captain Christopher Vetter of the New Hampshire State Police stated earlier this year that people continue to drive distracted. I've personally seen people doing their makeup while driving, on their phone while driving. Even today, I saw two girls driving up towards Concord, videotaping motorcycles, I can only assume to put on Facebook or TikTok, while they were driving. I've seen young adults flying up and down my road with no regard to the fact that people crossing the street or children may be playing in their yards. My road is not a quiet road that is only traveled on by people who live on it. People use my road as a cut through from the Glass Buck Street area to Pembroke Road. Most of, if not all, the statistics are from adults. Now, can you imagine how much easier it would be for a child who isn't as tall as an adult nor has the reflexes of an adult to be hit by a distracted driver? I have watched cars whose drivers were not paying attention and have had to swerve to the right so they did not hit a bus that was stopping to let kids on and off. I've also watched cars drive around the buses that are stopped. I cannot fathom my child becoming one of those statistics because Linda is angry, that I question why she removed my stop and pointed out her mistake in thinking my house was 2 Turnpike Street. Having my daughter cross the street 4 times a day, twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon, or walking in the road is unsafe. I am asking here tonight that the school board reinstate my bus stop for the safety of my 8-year-old daughter. Sorry.
You're good.
I am also asking here tonight that the SAU 53 school board strongly reconsider who you have in charge of the safety of our children getting to and from school, because the person currently in that position, in my mind, made a blatant threat to my child's safety when she threatened to remove our street as a stop altogether and force my 8-year-old to walk 2 blocks away to another bus stop, all out of anger over being questioned why my stop was removed. And just so you all know, I got a phone call from Linda. I'm guessing that you, Ms. Sherman, told her about my back surgery in October, and she agreed to put my bus stop back on, but then told me to go to the school board and fight it for permanent. So here I am fighting for it to be permanently put back. Please.
Okay. Thank you. So just so you know, this is not typically like a question and answer type session, but if you guys are okay, I'd like to address this one. So I'm not sure about that last statement about like it not being permanent, but Patty reached out to Linda and we got new bus routes again, like we usually do throughout the beginning of the school year at our last meeting, which was October. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, 23rd, but no. Anyway, a couple meetings ago, and yours is 26 Turnpike Street, right? And it's back on there, and we voted to approve that, and it does not say anywhere that it's temporary.
Okay.
So if you
Okay.
have any trouble, certainly let us know. And I mean, you can email Ms. Sherman.
Mhm.
But that stop is on both the morning and the afternoon route for White Bus, and it should not go away.
Okay.
She has agreed to put that back.
Okay.
I mean, to the other part, I'll editorialize a little bit. I'll speak on my behalf, not behalf of the board, so we don't get in any trouble. There's a lot of frustration with
Linda.
similar circumstances. Unfortunately, historically, when we go out to bid for bus contracts, we get one bid. We don't have a choice really in who there's discussions of long-term plans to possibly pivot, but I wish I could tell you something better than that.
Mhm.
But right now we just don't have any options
Okay.
to choose from. But your stop is on this sheet that we approved at our meeting a couple of weeks ago. So
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. I did not know that because Linda had left me a voicemail. I think it was before that meeting then, because it was before my surgery, and it was not a pleasant voicemail. So,
okay.
so I wasn't aware that it was put back on permanently. And like I said, my other concern was next year with her threatening to remove it altogether and making my daughter walk. I mean, most days I can't walk from my bedroom to my bathroom. So her threatening to move it to, I'm trying to avoid that next year too.
Okay. No, we appreciate it. And if you do receive any further emails, anything that's in writing that is untoward, certainly forward that to us so that we have copies and can keep track of that sort of thing because it's uncalled for. So I'm sorry that you're having to deal with that. And I don't see any other members of the public here, so we'll close public comment. Move to agenda review. You said you had something that you wanted to, maybe Hill School update, move up to the top.
So if we could move the Hill report to further down.
Oh, further down.
Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of conversation, so I'd rather let the principals do their budget presentations first. So maybe 8C.
Yep, we'll make
If
that an
that's okay.
8C.
And then we have 2 consent items instead of 1. And we have we need to add small letter A and small letter K to the non-public.
Sounds like a party. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to add or ask about on the agenda? Okay. I think if it's okay, we'll maybe move minutes towards the end to see if we have everybody here on them. We can approve them if not, but we'll give people a chance. So I guess I'll move minutes right before non-public. Give them the most amount of time I can. So that brings us to board reports. So we have Jacob LePage here with us. Let us know what's going on in the student realm.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jacob LePage, and I don't have a ton today for the student report of what's going on in the school. I can report on what has been happening in the Student Senate. We have officially started our planning for Winter Carnival, which is our big celebration right before February break. We as senators, it is our job to put together the brunt of Winter Carnival. We have already started deciding themes, which is a big discussion topic today. I believe we are sending out certain themes to be talked about by class advisors within the coming weeks. And once those are decided, we can officially start our major planning for Winter Carnival. Other than that, I do not really have much today.
Does anybody have questions for Jacob? Okay, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. All right, Mr. Coughlin.
Good evening. It's been a while since we've seen each other, so just to update you on some of the items we've been up to as a facilities crew. The new kiln at Three Rivers was wired up by our electrician, is now operable. A backflow preventer at Three Rivers, which is our main water source was replaced. This is to our fire suppression system at Three Rivers. The last scheduled replacement bathroom countertop at Three Rivers was finally completed, and PA had 2 backflow preventers repaired. And all those things were done on the teacher workshop day on 10/6, just to give you perspective of what we're trying to accomplish when we don't have the students in the building. It's a prime time to get some of those projects done. On top of that, we have fired up the new gas boilers here at Pembroke Academy. We are probably 98% complete on that project. 2 biggest things on the punch list are to insulate the new pipes and to pay the remaining balance. Probably the most important thing on Honeywell's end. That was the ESSER funds that were approved maybe about a year ago at this point in time. So with that, that's 3 boilers and a gas hot water heater here for Pembroke Academy. We also completed our local code inspection with the Pembroke Fire Department. This is done annually, and with some minor corrections, all went very well in all buildings. We winterized our athletic field sprinkler system, and we are currently prepping for winter outside. So that includes the softball and baseball fields have been turned over at both locations. And items such as nets, goals, etc., are all coming down, going away as we prep for the inevitable, which is snow. The new truck has had its safety light put on, so the beacon light is installed. The last step on that process is we're hoping to get the decals on this Friday. Truck has been great. The crew is ecstatic, and hopefully you see it around town with the safety light on. And on our end, the fall athletic season has come to an end. As I just said, we've been busy supporting that end and prepping for the winter stuff within the department. So that's the update.
All right, any questions for Josh? Do you have a estimate on the schoolhouse?
Yeah, so I talked to our contractor maybe a couple weeks ago, and we're hoping end of November into December. But the reality of that's probably January or February. It is a winter project we have. It's just getting them to finish up their jobs and getting us on board.
Okay. I just wanted to be able to give them. She emailed me a couple of months ago and asked for like a general time frame. So
Absolutely.
cool. Any other questions for Josh?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. All right. SU/exec.
We met on the 25th. I think pretty much all of us were there, and passed the SAU budget for 24-25. Correct. All right. I always get the years mixed up. And we had a couple of people in the audience that did ask some questions during the public hearing portion and the public comment portion. And we had a exec board meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, but that has since been canceled. Did not look up the new date of that meeting, the next meeting. Yeah, December. That's about it.
All right. Questions? All right. That will bring us to principals. I guess we'll start with Mr. McCarthy to go in the middle this time.
At some point. So since we last met, we had a professional development day. Teachers worked really hard on analyzing IRADA data in terms of rubric calibration. I got to participate and watch students in the traditional fall relay, which was a major success, and the weather couldn't be better. It was a lot of joy to see students compete in a very friendly way. Red Ribbon Week, which was last week, was a success. I want to thank Mrs. Edwards and Mrs. Coletti for running it. For those of you that don't know what Red Ribbon Week, it's about promoting a healthy lifestyle, and students participated in numerous conversations and activities. Three Rivers are champions again. Both the boys and girls soccer teams won the Southeast League titles in very exciting games this past week. And lastly, I want to thank Mrs. Sepek and Ms. Morris for running our theater team, which put on 4 performances of the play Rochambeau, and it was absolutely phenomenal to watch. So that's us.
Cool. Any questions about Three Rivers?
Are you? So I had been approached by a parent asking about the cheer squad that we used to have at TRS and if that will be returning, just because we're trying to get a feeder program for the high school. Spirit's been a huge championship winners here for the high school. So just wondering if maybe TRS is going to bring that cheer squad back. Was asking some questions.
Well, that's a good question. This is the first time I've been approached with such a thing. So that'll be a good conversation for us to have in order to potentially establish a cheer program at Three Rivers. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Any others? All right, we'll go to Dr. Morris.
Evening, everyone. I just wanted to start by congratulating Liz Duclos and Hill School. That's quite an honor for her. She's going to be a great representative of Hill School and a great ambassador to public education in New Hampshire. So congratulations, Hill School and Liz. At PA, we submitted our action plan for school improvement to NEASC I believe it was 2 weeks ago. And that, I'm sure you probably remember, we had 3 recommendations that we needed to work on. One was the development of a strategic plan. Another was to help facilitate the development of a parent organization that we can partner with. And the third was to have a more consistent, universally adopted format for our curriculum. So those were all outlined by month and who's supposed to be doing what, with an anticipated end date of the decennial visit, which will be April of 2025. So that went to NEASC just a little bit ago. In mid-October, Mr. Roddy and I presented, along with 2 Epsom upperclassmen, to Deerfield parents at Deerfield Community School. Really, Mr. Roddy and I just put the slideshow together. The two students were the stars of the show, and they did a great job, and we got a lot of good feedback from that night. So hopefully we've piqued some interest, and Deerfield families will be considering Pembroke Academy. I happen to think it's a good choice. We also hosted the Deerfield 8th graders, it's approximately 50 students, the week after that. And we conducted a panel of, I want to say it was about 16 people, and that was staff members and students, and just walked through what that Pembroke Academy experience looks like, starting with PYL. That was a big commendation, both from the Eddies and NEASC, and we wanted to focus on that because I'm sure that would be at the, the top of everyone's list as an incoming 8th grader. And then we went through everything. We had a good cross section of staff as well as students for that. And then students took the Deerfield students based on their homerooms for a tour of the building, and got a lot of good feedback on that as well. Girls soccer made the Final Four again for the 3rd season in a row, and I want to congratulate them on an excellent and successful season. Boys soccer and field hockey also made the NHIA tournament this year, so happy for the success of those programs. We have a relatively new honor society at Pembroke Academy called Tri-M. It's a music honor society. I believe it's also the only chapter in the state of New Hampshire, and that is led by Mrs. Morehouse, our choral teacher. And she brought the executive board for that honor society, approximately, I think it was 4 students, to Nashua for the New Hampshire Music Educators Association's PD Day. And those students presented and got a lot of a really good response from people. They actually thought that the students were in college. And then the students ended up sticking around and attended some of the breakout sessions, like, for instance, what you need as a first-year music teacher. And I think that was a great experience for them. And then finally, we have our musical performance School of Rock going up next week, and looking forward to that. We will have a live orchestra pit again this year, featuring Pembroke Academy and TRS staff musicians. I might know someone who will be there in costume, and actually, I believe a TRS student is going to be making a cameo as one of the guitarists. So there's that too.
Awesome. Any questions for Dr. Morris? All right. Thank you. Ms. Gary,
So you had stated that there were around 50 8th graders that came from Deerfield.
Yeah.
Is that the whole 8th grade class, or it is?
It
Okay.
is,
I wasn't
yeah.
sure. I know there's, when this subject was first talked about, that, we could take up to maybe like 30 students or something like that, so 50 doesn't seem like a huge stretch if that's the case. I know we're not going to get that, but
Yeah. I'm anticipating it'll be a modest number to start because we're working through, older siblings that went to Concord, and,
right.
You've got that, and you've got some people who live closer to Co-Brown. But I'm just excited that we could have the opportunity of having some of them. And I think if we have an opportunity to have a few, we're going to be able to get more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
any others? All right.
All right. So obviously our big news is that Liz Duclos did win the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. At the last meeting, I had that information, but I was sworn 100% to secrecy. So it was very hard. They asked us to do a surprise assembly for her. So we were obviously trying to pull it off, but it eked out there. I think they were getting like feelers of what was going on, but we did have the commissioner come out, Valerie Sununu, the rest of the committee come. We rolled out the red carpet. Literally, we have one for assemblies. It was a great way for them to kind of see Hill School. And I think one of the biggest things out of this is obviously not only Liz being able to represent kind of, you know, all of New Hampshire now, but they walked to the building and they got to see the staff and they got to see the students, and they really had just a lot of positive feedback about Hill School in general. So I think that's a great thing for Pembroke, not just for Liz. She now moves on to representing New Hampshire for the National Teacher of the Year. That's a very involved application process. I think she has to write 5 essays and then a whole host of other things. So she's working through that right now. And they also gave us like a banner that we have hung up in the gym right now. So that's very cool. Couple other things. Today I mentioned to you, we were trying to spend more time with our paras in training. So we had our para training this afternoon. It's one of the highlights of the month. I love sitting with them for an hour. There is lots of laughter. And getting a chance to meet with them to hear what they need so we can help support them. And that dedicated time it's been amazing. So I really appreciated that. We were working on Medicaid billing, which is a very fun topic. And then next time we're going to be working on technology, because oftentimes they're using technology in the classrooms and with the students, and they asked for training specifically around how to use the systems and the different things that we have. So our digital learning specialist will be there for the next one to help support that. We have just kind of an update. I know we had talked a little bit about some of the curriculum things that we're working on this year. Everybody is very, very hard at work on for foundations and the phonics component of everything. That's in 100% full swing K2. We have 16 teachers that are currently doing the letters training. So we've all banded together and there's a support group, because it's a lot. There's a lot of information, but it's really great because I'm going through it with them. So Tammy and I are doing the teacher one with them. It also helps when we're in the building, we're able to see all of those things. And we now have like common language that we're using K2, and you can see how those skills will build. It's a lot of work, going into something new, and but it's been amazing to watch, even in the short amount of time, what we're seeing in the progress with that. So I'm very, very grateful for all of their work, as well as in the upper grades 2-4 have done some more in we call it a knowledge-based curriculum for literacy. We have a couple things coming up. We just parent conferences in December. Those are big times for us to sit with everybody. Our winter concerts, very well attended. And then our art club has started. That is a hit. There's always a wait list. So she's trying to see if she can eke out another session, because they all want to be a part of art club with Miss Murphy. So those are kind of the things that are going on at Hill School right now.
Awesome. Any questions? Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Melanie, we moved the Hill School thing down because it's going to take a little time. Dean, NBC. I forgot what those letters mean.
Yeah, right. So we have not had a meeting since our last meeting, although we do have our next, really getting into the swing of things starting on the 9th, which is Thursday. So yeah, I'll be reporting back on a regular basis at that point.
Okay. Thank you. Were you going to do this thing during informational, or could I say something about it now? Okay. Will Josh still be here?
You can do it right now. You can do whatever you want.
I'll just okay. I'll just bring this up now. We're going to do it under informational, but it's in the drive, and I don't know if Josh is going to stick around all night, but it's a good thing. So I just wanted to read this quickly. It's a note. Did it come to you?
Yes.
Did it come? Okay. So this is dated October 31st. It's addressed actually to Dr. Morris, and it says, on behalf of the Pembroke Historical Society and the Pembroke Town Library, I wanted to commend the staff of Pembroke Academy for their help in holding our scheduled poetry reading last Friday night. After a last-minute closing of the town library due to plumbing problems, we reached out to your facilities department for an alternative meeting space. We were able to hold the event on time and in a most comfortable place. Joshua Coughlin, facilities director, responded immediately to our request and allowed us to use the PA library for the recitations of Robert Frost's nature poetry by New Hampshire poet and author Jeffrey Zigman, I think. Your librarian was also helpful in welcoming us to this wonderful room that has such great acoustics. I also wanted to acknowledge the help of Robin Berube, who connected me to Mr. Coughlin, and custodian Jerry, who helped us with signs and setup. Everyone was patient and understanding of the situation, and I'm so impressed with them. I'm proud that they are employees of our town. Thank you for your leadership of this wonderful institution. Sincerely, Sally Highland, Pembroke Historical Society. Great. I also appreciate good representation of the district. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions about board reports? Anything like that before we move on? All right. We've got 2 things for consent agenda.
Okay, the first item is the Washington field trip for Three Rivers.
Any questions? We've been doing this one for a million years. Do we have questions? It's actually cheaper this year than it was last year, which is cool. By like, what's that? Yeah.
Yeah, we missed it. I gave it to Ashley this afternoon. Sorry. It got on the agenda, but not in the drive.
Okay. Then is there a motion to?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All right, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That was easy.
Okay, the second is a child rearing leave request. If you have questions or want to discuss that, it needs to be in non-public. If you're all set, you can take action now.
Motion to approve the child rearing leave.
I'll second.
All right, so I'm assuming that means we're okay to go ahead and vote. Does everybody have questions, comments? Okay, then all in favor of approving the child rearing leave, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. No gifts and donations? You sure?
The letter was a gift.
All right. 8A, we have our building budget presentations from admin. You want to?
So this is, the board members have seen this because we used this format at the SAU board meeting. So this is our new budget format that comes directly from our accounting system, eliminates any possibility of formula errors or typos or anything else that can go wrong when you try to create something in an Excel spreadsheet. So we're really excited about this. So Amber was able, it took some time, but she was able to create, you put the information in and then you have to create a report. So this is actually a report from our system. So she's been playing with this. It took a little bit to get the budget actuals to populate, but we got those in. And then just as soon as like 3 days ago, I had said, oh, it's a shame we don't have the line numbers like we used to on the Excel sheet, because then you could refer to that instead of an account number, and she figured it out. So it's 3 columns over, it says line numbers. So we don't need to do the, 001, 1100 and try to have everybody follow. We'll just, the principals will be able to reference a line number and you'll be able to go right to it. So this now is the district-wide budget. We've been working in our building budgets and now it's all put together. So the principals have been working hard to sort of highlight the changes in their buildings, and we'll go through each building with you. Certainly ask questions. The budget looks great now because there's half of it's not in here. So as you may remember from last year, we took the time to do the building budgets the first meeting so that you could really hear what the needs were in each of our schools. And then in 2 weeks, Amber will be here and she'll have all the salaries populated, all the benefits. So really the big ticket items will be in there and the budget should be complete. All your special ed numbers will be ready. So you'll get that presentation in 2 weeks. So I don't know which order you want to go in, but our principals are ready to present. Do you want to start with Hill then? Thank you.
It's okay, I'll start. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the things that were either increases or changes that are just to bring your attention to. So I'll start with line 7, which is our substitute salaries. So it's an increase of $5,000, obviously based on our actuals from the previous year and where we're likely going for next year. We brought that number up. If you go to page 2, one of the things you guys had asked for me to do is to bring back a little bit more about what's going on with the music and band programs. So you'll see some of those throughout here. That's type of that request. So line 28, you'll see that we put in $260 for instrument repairs, and she's listed the ones right now that she'd like to get repaired. Line 34 is just to adjust for overages that we've had in copying. You go to line 37, or if you need me to slow down, just let me know. Line 37. Yeah. Sandy will nudge me. Yeah. Actually, I'll go to line 44. It's art supplies. Just cost of materials in general are going up. So her consumables went up about $500. Line 46, supplies for math. So you'll notice that's a pretty significant increase. We cut that initially last year. We had come to you with a number for increasing the math materials that we needed to make the shifts in our math instruction, and a lot of those were taken from grant or trust funds this past year. So this number reflects kind of the need going into for next year. It's things like a lot of consumables, how to manage the materials in the classroom. They're using a lot of what we call manipulatives, hands-on materials. And then another practice we use is their vertical whiteboards, so kids can stand up and get working. We've had a lot of success with that practice, so that reflects those specific needs in that number. Line 47, supplies for music. The numbers increased because I did ask her to bring to me what she needed, looking at the band program in particular. So you'll see that that was an increase there for things like this, reeds, music books, rhythm supplies. I did move instrument repair, so I'll note that to the other line. Line 48, physical education. That was similar. We used some of that in the instructional trust, materials trust last year. So this is her bringing in, trying to build up a lot of those programs or group games that she'd like to bring into her curriculum. Line 49, that's reading supplies. So the increase you'll see there is to address the new programs that we brought in. Foundations, they do have workbooks that we wanted to get into to make sure it was going to be a benefit, because sometimes you'll get programs and the workbooks don't support it, but absolutely those things support the work that we're doing. So you'll see an increase for that there. We can go to page 6, line 81. So this computer parts, you'll see that there's a significant increase here, but that is because there's a decrease when we get further on in our replacement cycle. So they're looking to extend the life cycle of our Chromebooks. So you'll see more going towards computer parts, but a decrease in our actual replacement cycle when I get there. Line 84, IT's indicated they need a new server at Hill School for this coming year. Line 93, that was another one that we had in the budget previously, and then we used trust and grant funds for literacy books. Those are the books that we use to support the instruction in the classroom, and this year we're working to get additional copies in student hands. Right now we're trying to get them one-to-one so that the kids have what they need in their hand. If you go to page 11, line 143. I have been told that our laminator we've had to repair it a couple of times. So the newest one we have was purchased in 2012. The oldest one we have is several years before that. And as you can imagine, in an elementary school, laminating is very important. So we would like to replace it, because at this point we're putting money into repairs here or there. And if you go to line 144, you'll see the replacement computer cycle. That's a significant decrease of about $18,000 when they redid the new replacement cycle. But that's why you'll see the $3,000 increase in parts, because they're trying to get more out of the equipment that we do have. Line 151, the new music equipment. She's just asking right now for a saxophone. For that's $400. If you go to page 15, line 227, it's a special education supply line. This one is just the materials we need to support the shift in instruction, specifically in the phonics. There's a lot of like manipulatives or different types of things that we need to support that. It's very exciting. Special ed's, it's really cool to watch what's going on. I'm excited about that. If you go to page 21, line 324, we have unfortunately have not had anybody take on drama club or outdoor club, but we do have art club. So what we'd like to do is just make that shift with the co-curriculars, and then we're just shift. So you'll see a decrease with that, but we are putting in art club. And then that's why on page 22, line 335, you'll also see a change just in the co-curricular supplies. We have a couple more. If you go to page 28, so there's two lines that I'd like you to take a look at. 433, which is it says curriculum development, and then 436, and they all say curriculum development. What I did was just shift funds from one line to the other to make sure it was getting paid properly out of the correct line. We do a lot of work over the summer, and so that the line 433 will pay for staff to come in over the summer and do a lot of the work that we can't do now. We eked out every dollar this past summer and had a ton of staff in. It was amazing. So that's why you see that shift. And then just line 436 is to make sure we have the materials that we need to do that work. A lot of math kits and different things like that we put together. So a lot of that was just a shift from one line to the next. And then we go to page 40, line 645, you'll just see a little bit of a decrease in our transitions bus line. And then the last one is on page 49. Line 752 is field trip expense. We just increased it a little bit. Obviously, buses are costing more. So we budget about $1,000 per grade level for buses. And then PALS pays usually for our admissions to the different places that we go. So we provide the buses, and then PALS will pay admission. And I think that takes Hill School to the end.
Okay. It's quick. Does anybody have questions immediately? We'll circle back plenty.
Just, I don't expect an answer tonight, but an area of critical need where you know that you may be lacking, that's something that's, fallen by the wayside over the years. So if you get to that point, if you find something, just let us know too. So that's important. So we don't, all of a sudden 5 years down the road, so I know everything's a critical need, but yeah.
So we don't have to close a building because we ignored repairs on it too long.
Down the agenda that a critical need. But thank you for that. I'll keep it in mind, and we'll talk with staff as well. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we'll go to the Three Rivers.
Good evening again. We'll start off on page 1 on line item number 8. Just like Hill School, just to match the actuals, we're asking for a $5,000 increase in substitute pay. If you look on the second page, we have a small amount of savings on line item 35. We were able to look at usage of printers in the building, and we were able to eliminate a printer that had very low usage. So this number has dropped down a little bit. On page 3, line item number 38, electronic software budget has gone up, and that is due to IdentiKids, which is our security software that tags kids, is no longer a year-to-year license. It is a 3-year license. So it'll be a bump this year, and then next year it will look like a decrease because we're still in that 3-year cycle. And then 2 years from now, you'll see it go up again. And it's just for that very reason. Line item number 55 on page 4, general supplies increase of $3,000. We're finding that free shipping is not being as offered as much as possible. And shipping costs have increased, and to cover that, we are asking for a $3,000 increase there. Further down the line 56, a $500 increase for supplies for art, match some of that. But also our art teacher would like to do some digital art through the use of tablets. So we're having those pens to do that sort of initiative. It sounds like a great opportunity, and that accounts for the $500 increase there. Line item 63, supplies for science, $200 again. It just kind of factors in the days of free shipping are just not really around, and the cost item of consumables have gone up, and that's to cover that. Moving on to page 7, item 82, the increase of $3,000 for parts. We will be looking at a replacement cycle of computers. The best way to describe it, some of our middle-aged computers need a little fixing. They're not quite, don't mean to point out sensitive to myself or anyone else here, in order to repair those to extend the life. Continuing on, line item 102 on page 8. Our reading program is very novel and chapter book based, and they are well loved and well used. And it's time to start cycling out some of those older novels for some more current ones, and the ones that are well loved, just we need new books. But you will see if you go down to kind of very similar to Hill, if you go to line item 146, those computers, we're saving a little bit on the replacement cycle of computers, which I know you'll hear more in a couple of weeks, but we need less replacement computers because of replacement of the parts for those middle-aged computers. And I'm stealing that line from IT. I did not come up with that myself. Line item 325 on page 21, we have no changes in our stipends position, so that will hold steady. Line item 331 are for our co-curricular officials, having our elector, Ms. Verdima, talk to the official organization, and there will be an increase in the rate they charge next year, and this is to cover that. Line item 337 is holding steady on, those are just general supplies for our drama and theater program. Something I just want to put on the radar, line 410, which is odometer, which is basically the hearing test in the nurse's office. The technician says we have the oldest one in the state. So I take that as a sense of pride. So the potential for that having to be replaced in the near future is there. But in the meantime, he has been able to replace the parts, but he's not too sure how much longer that is going to happen. So that's just to be put on the radar. And I do have my nurse looking at what that will entail cost-wise. If we can go to page 29, line item 446, this is an increase. I would like to bring in the American Red Cross during the 4 professional development days to train more staff to be trained in first aid and CPR and AED training. With the complex medical needs that we are having with children, we would like to increase the ratio of certified staff to students to be a number that we can be very comfortable with. Line item 452 is a little bit of increase. We do not have quote unquote interventionists, but we do run an RTI program, and part of really bringing that program up is a part of education. So I am asking for some books to do a book read for RTI in order to develop a more robust intervention program from students that have academic needs. No increase there. No. The workshop reimbursement on page 32 is 514. That's holding steady. And I just want to say this is very well utilized by TRS staff. We do with, workshops and seminars opening up across the state. Staff are definitely using these professional opportunities to be learners and step outside the building. So I've approved quite a bit this year, and I anticipate that to be moving forward. I believe that is all I want to truly point out to you guys. And I thank you for your consideration.
Any questions? Do you want to repeat yours, Gene?
Mhm. $850 decrease in the replacement cycle and a $3,000 increase in the parts, replacement parts. So I guess I'm going to have to wait and see it on the presentation because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Okay. All right.
Others? I just had one, and if you have to get an answer from the teacher, that's fine too. I'm not exactly sure what is meant by a tablet pen. I don't know if that's something that writes on an existing Chromebook already, but for 25 of any digital device, $500 seems low. So I was just wondering if you happen to know what those are, or if that's.
I do, because basically it's kind of those touch point pens that you see that that you can do signatures with, like at grocery stores and whatnot, the signature, but they're a little more specialized for art. They have different size tips, so she can work with the students a little bit to kind of do those digital art projects.
Okay. And they're really only like, what is that, $40 a piece?
Yeah, they are.
Neat. All right. Okay. Anything else? You have something?
Currently at Three Rivers, we're not looking to quote unquote add, we're looking to keep everyone we do have. We do have one position that is ungranted, and we would eventually would like to move that to the general operation. But that is our math coach, who works actually not just with our math teachers, but also our science teachers as well.
Yep.
This budget here. Okay.
I wonder for things like that, if you think it's okay, I would love to hear those folks come in and sort of explain like what what does a math coach do? I mean, I have a general idea, but it would just be nice to have that recorded on a meeting. And then if people are like, why do we need this thing? Why do we have to keep paying for this? And we can be like, well, go to the November whatever meeting and you can hear all about it. I mean, no pressure. I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, or Bill could bring it, you could bring it. I don't care. It'd be great if they wanted to come and talk, but I also know people don't love to come out on a Tuesday night if they don't have to. So. All right. Last call. Any other questions? All right. Yep. I was gonna let Dan go. We're on the spot. Yeah. Yeah, so same thing. I mean, it doesn't even have to be. I guess what I'm doing, I'm thinking ahead to March and answering the questions and justifying the things. So whichever way you all come up with that you think is best for that, you know, if we can show test scores and say, hey, we could use a little bump in math at Hill School, you know, whatever we want to do. But I just want to be able to, you know me, I'm supportive of. Yeah, I want to be able to come with some data and be like, yeah, we're not just spending this money because we hate the taxpayers. Like, this is why we're doing it. So, well, anything else? All right, we'll go to PA then.
Okay, good evening again. Gene, anticipating your question, the two kind of high priority areas for us. One is retaining our student support person, our staff member. It's a non-certified position that is currently grant funded. That student support primary responsibility is facilitating the in-school suspension room and working with those students as they kind of go through the consequences that they have. This is my 8th year at PA. This the 5 years prior, or the 6 years prior to this position being grant funded, we did not have, and so what would happen is we would end up like, look, the only option we have is out of school suspension. And, you know, when you have students who are racking up detentions and not serving those detentions because they were tardy, it generates a lot of cognitive dissonance to then suspend them out of school. And so, anyway, we're going to be looking at putting that, advocating for that position for going from grant funding to the budget. The other one is, and I think you may remember I mentioned a few meetings ago that we had a significant change in our adult ed grant in that money went away. And that represented $30,000. We were able to make some changes, but there is an impact in our budget, and that impact is going to be approximately $9,000. And I'll kind of outline where that is here. But the adult ed program is a significant tool that we use for a lot of students and has become even more important when you consider that we no longer have PACE Academy as another option. So I'll go through that as we go through these lines, but I'll let you know where that is impacted from the loss of that grant. Okay? So I don't have a number for that student support personnel. That will be something that Amber would have. Okay? So the first line that I'd like to highlight is going to be line 76. And yep, that is going to be page 6. So I think what you'll find is, we have the change in the adult ed grant. There are a number of items that are inflation related. And then we have adjustments to line items that we either cut in the past or funded using alternative, streams. And so when you look at the science line, that only is a $50 increase, but I want to mention it because it is a significant line item, and we raised it significantly the previous year because of inflation. So I just want to point that out, that we're trying to maintain what we've had, but doing that with inflation and the increases in shipping costs. And when you're talking about animal organs or things that we're dissecting, shipping costs are incredibly important. I want to then go to just a few lines under that, line 79. That's a new line that I asked Amber to put in, specific to the makerspace. So that is it's a good problem that we have in that we have a lot of departments that are starting to use that space. And what I've asked them to do, because the science department was funding a lot of the kind of supplies for that, and I said, put in what each department needs for materials for the makerspace, and then we'll consolidate that all into one line, and we'll kind of earmark which department has so much money. So that's why you have a new line here for $2,200 for makerspace supplies. So for instance, that would be like filament for the 3D printer, or balsa wood for the Glowforge, things like that. Okay, line 108 is English books, and that represents a big increase because we took the English books out of the budget last year and funded that through the Literacy Trust or the Instructional Materials Trust. So, similar to what Bill said, we operate off of, different novels that are in circulation and go through a replacement cycle, and they are well used, but they do require replacement. So that's why that is there. If you go down to line 111, you're going to see an increase there because we need to update our probability and stats textbook. Line 115, we need to get some human biolab books. And 116, that's another increase because our AP government textbooks need to be updated as well. Okay, if you go to line 147, which is on page 11, this is to replace equipment such as a kiln, pottery wheel parts, electric pianos, classical guitars. There are also 2 new exercise equipment machines for the weight room. That is put in there by our life studies department, but it's not only used by the life studies classes, it's also used after school by our athletes, because that's also obviously the weight room. If you go to line 148, you'll see a significant decrease in Chromebooks. Still, obviously, a big number. Okay, you go to line 161, which is on page 12. You see an increase there for a soprano sax and a tuba. Line 164, you'll see an increase, and I've outlined what that increase represents. 4 microscopes, some classroom startup packs for forensic science, and electronic components for pre-engineering, and toolkits for pre-engineering. I'm going to skip around here, so if anyone has any questions. If you go to line 269, and I can tell you what page that's on. Thank you, page 18. So I want to point that out because that is one of the places where we would need to add just under $2,700 because of the loss of the adult ed grant. So additional money there. And it's not represented yet because Amber has to add more money, but that's where some of the loss of that grant will. No, 2,700. Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Line 290, supplies, inflation again. So this is inflation as well as hoping to have an additional section of Foods 1, which is a very popular class. Continuing on to the next page, page 20 at the very top, line 302. An increase again for lumber and construction materials, inflation and delivery for those things are obviously pretty expensive. And that's, I've had a conversation with our woodshop teacher, and that is not adding anything new to the curriculum. That's trying to maintain what we are currently doing. Okay. If you could turn to page 22, I want to just go over some of these co-curricular lines. So you'll see for line 343 an increase because we're hoping to spend $14,000 to replace hurdles, which are considerable investment. If you go to line 389, which is on page 25, there's an increase in testing. Testing is a collective term to represent our PSAT testing, our SAT testing, the New Hampshire SAS testing, which is our 11th grade science testing, and AP testing. A few years ago, we took on the cost of paying for AP tests for students because we would have students who would take a number of AP classes in 1 year, and that became cost prohibitive. And we didn't want a barrier of entry to be the cost of the test. So we took that on. If you go to page or line 595, which is, I believe it's going to be page 36, 37. This is our other assignment stipend line. And this is, there are two increases here. One is an increase because of the loss of that adult ed money, because part of that adult ed grant helped pay for the PYL staff members in the summer. And so with the loss of that grant, trying to maintain the PYL program, there's an additional increase there of approximately $6,500. And then there's also the addition of a musical accompanist to accompany the chorus during musical performances. So I think the PYL line is increase is more like 89. Okay, and then very close to the end, if you go to page 49, this is going to look like a big increase. it's line 751, and that is bus rental, which is our busing for our co-curriculars. And 60,000 is really more in line with what our budget actuals are rather than what was budgeted last year, which was 30,000. So that's going to look like a huge increase, but we're just trying to stay consistent with what our actuals are. So I've highlighted about 20 lines. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there are other lines that you want me to talk about, I'd be happy to do that.
The only question I have right now is on line 147. We have some musical equipment and the weight room equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mark the other one, or the tuba.
Yep.
Whatever. So why are they on separate lines, I guess is what?
One is replacement equipment,
Oh,
and one is new equipment.
okay.
So the other line you're talking about is 161.
161. Okay. Yeah. I
So
missed
that's
that.
why.
New. Okay.
Dan, I just have one question. The probability and statistics, did we offer that this year for students? I know it says update the text. I just didn't know, was that an offered class this year?
Yeah, it's just called stats. It's not probability and statistics, but yes. Yep.
Others? Got a couple on line 56. Oh no, that one was Bill's question. I know that there's a second one for Dan. Well, I'll ask the one that I know where it is. The testing line 389. It looks like the actual from 22-23 was significantly lower. So I'm just wondering why we're going up so much. Have the prices gone up that much?
I'll have to look at that. I think what's also in that line is table rentals. And, I had a parent once call, and the table rentals was a topic of conversation throughout town. And, she asked why we rented them. I said, it's because we don't own them. And, the College Board is very specific about, you need to have 8-foot tables. You can only have 2 people at them. They need to be, 4 or 6 feet apart, that sort of thing. So that's also in there. But let me also look in my bag of tricks here to see what else I can tell you about it.
And I mean, next time's fine too. I don't need to know right now. Just curious. The other question that I had, and this is more of a general thing, and this is a 100% genuine question because I haven't been in high school in a couple of years, and I'm only just starting. I've got one kid in 9th grade right now, so there's a lot here for new textbooks. I know going through Village and Hill and TRS, textbooks are not really a thing very much. My daughter, that is, I don't think, she's reading her own copy of Mice and Men, and I don't think she's brought home like what I think of as a math book from 20 years ago. So like, what is the state of textbooks these days? Does everybody get one and they take it home all the time, or is there 10 of them in the classroom people share, or is it digital stuff, or just how's that work?
It's more rare than it used to be. In some cases, like for instance, at AP Government, we have to submit to the College Board our course prospectus, and that has to be approved. And if there are texts that we're using, they have to be approved texts that, are approved by the College Board. So that's why that would be the English books. Those aren't texts. We don't have a textbook driven English program. That's just, a lot of use. And also, adding some additional titles that are more engaging for, reluctant readers, and trying to meet kids where they're at too. So, but, we have a new forensic textbook. It's, we don't have, like, for instance, when I went through here, mean, my algebra book was very small because it had been rebinded so many times. And, you know, we don't have that anymore. But there are certain classes that still use a text pretty regularly. But then we have like our world language department doesn't use a text very much at all.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other general questions about this part of the budget for Patty or anybody else? Great. So as we do this time of year, I'll encourage everybody to look at all those highlighted lines a little more closely, develop questions. And I suppose we should ask, like we always do, for a list from you guys of however you want to do it, either prioritized or, you know, high, medium, low, or order start to finish, or however, so that when the time comes that we have to make decisions, we can do that in a educated way. Anything on budget before we move on from anybody?
So in 2 weeks, we're hoping to have draft warrant articles, not to make any decisions, but I wanted to get them, Ashley's preparing them just so that we have them on paper and we can look at what we have and what we're recommending. Josh already submitted some of his numbers. So we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. But I think something that's important to talk about too is your intentions. We talked about trying to spend down the curriculum materials trust. So we took a big chunk out of that of this year's budget. So we need to decide if you want to continue to do that, because that will inform some of the work that we do in terms of preparing the, you know, like you said, the prioritized lines. If we come back and we have to make cuts and we know, well, we can cut a lot of those textbooks because we're going to use the instructional materials trust. So just keeping that in mind when we have those conversations, it will help us.
Having seen the trust funds, and they're losing money.
Yeah.
So I would encourage that we use the trust funds.
That's
And
what I thought you were
because
gonna say.
it's you know, there was, I mean, it's a pittance, you know, well, not really a pittance, like $250 to $500 that we're losing in a trust fund that is still taxpayer money. So if we can spend it to zero,
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, you know, and then maybe, I mean, a warrant article to replenish it, whatever the case may be, but you know, every year we're losing money now. So I would encourage that if we can.
Yeah, I would agree, especially, I mean, we have notes from last meetings, the stuff we discussed, which funds we definitely want to try to bring down. So yeah, I would agree. I do think I'll take a note, but I do think it's important that again is explained to people in March too, because those funds won't last forever. And eventually this stuff, at least the way I envision it, this stuff will be rolled into just the regular budget. It's weird to think that we have to have a conversation about putting books back into a school budget, but here we are.
I mean, another approach you could take, like you said, they're losing money, so you could spend down this year, but you can also do a replenishment in surplus so that it's surplus money, not new tax dollars.
Right.
It's tax dollars that have already been raised, and continue that cycle.
Right.
It's just,
And I like that because I think that's an easier sell to people too. Like, hey, we had a surplus, and I know that bothers some people, but that's the way it works. But saying, okay, we're going to take that surplus money and the stuff that we're going to buy with it is offsetting stuff that you would have had to buy next year or the year after anyway. That makes sense. So,
we can work on that.
okay, last call. Anything on budget? All right, we'll move on to 8B. Been dreading this one. I knew it would come up sooner or later.
We have hit the 5-year mark.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done some research with how do we proceed, and we'll just talk about a couple options and go from there, I guess. So this summer, I believe it's July, our 5th year runs up. So we have to sign a new contract moving forward from that point on. So they gave us 3 options. If we sign for 36 months or longer, they would keep the price the same, which is $25.74 a month, and that's $30,888 a year. If we sign for 24 months, that price is going to increase to $27.05 a month. I did not do the yearly math on that. And if we increase, or if we sign on for 1 month, our price will increase to $28.30 a month for a total of $36,036. In the grand scheme of things, it's really small money, but there definitely, I need a directive on which way to go from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to talk about Hill School later, but if my recollection is correct, if we have got a bond approved in 24, I'm not saying that's likely, but it would be fall of 26 before we could be in the buildings. Is that right?
Start construction, I believe.
And the yeah, so I mean, really, yeah, 3. I mean, we're gonna have to have them for at least that long, right? We haven't.
I think 36 months is best case situation.
I mean, we're still in there. They're still full. They're still in full use, right? We're not.
Every day.
Yeah. So, I mean, does anybody disagree with that assessment that we need 3 years? Like,
How are they holding up?
Pretty good. I mean, it's a modular. There's small repairs here and there. Probably our biggest thing internally is the plumbing and the toilets aren't commercial like they are here in the building. So we play around with that a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's there. The walls are holding up. The roof's there. The ramps are holding. I don't think I need action. They weren't pressing me. It was more me pressing them, knowing the budget was coming and wanting to be able to at least talk about that this time has come.
yeah. And I mean, part of me was thinking, well, should we say 3.5 or 4 years? Because who knows what's going to happen. But I guess since like you said, the monthly price difference, if we have to sign another 1 year later, is not a big deal. So it seems like a reasonable risk, I would say.
It bumps up a little monthly, and in 3 years from now, it might bump up. But I think at this point in time, we definitely have 3 years in it. And I think a best case situation is 3 years.
Yeah.
A worst case is we're going to be talking about this in 3 years.
Question I have, if the bond does pass and we do start construction, can those portable classrooms remain where they are, or do they have to be moved?
The expectation would be those stay where they are,
Okay.
depending on how the process plays out with construction, depending on options, however we determine how to go. Those aren't going anywhere. I would envision that to be the last thing to be removed.
Thank you.
Sense. Anything else on that? All right. So we made a new 8C out of the Hill School update.
Okay. So we had an interesting twist tonight at our committee meeting. The Harvey Construction estimator and I forget Keith's official title. The two, yeah, have been working on numbers, and we did let them know that the board wasn't really comfortable saying, hey, this is the number we want to see. They really wanted to see what design we came up with and then what the cost would be attached to that initial design. So while they were doing the numbers, and this is a ballpark, they did not by any means commit to this, but they're thinking the ballpark is $39 to $43 million. Once they started looking at all of this, and we had talked to them about Allenstown and that we needed to think about the questions that were going to come up about how did they build a brand new school for this. And they said that the cost of renovations are so high right now that they actually on their own considered, geez, we drive down this really long driveway and you have all this land, and they are feeling like they can build a brand new building for the same price, which clearly would have much better efficiencies than that. Any even heavy renovation, you're never going to have that is an inefficient building. We talked about that number and how realistic it was. I said I liked the 3 better than the 4 in the millions. Anytime you can keep under, they could also find some reductions to be made. They do like with the thought of a new building, you don't have to keep those really long corridors that we have now because of the way the building is already on site. So they're going to go back. They wanted a sense of the committee about how we felt. And I told them we had a board meeting tonight. So I wanted to also talk to the board. The committee was pretty unanimous that if we can get a brand new building for the same price of a renovation, that's kind of a no-brainer as long as the site works. They think there's a high spot. They would need to come in and do some more site work to make sure. But right when you turn in to Belanger Drive, they think that there's enough land there to make it happen. So they want some direction on, okay, is it okay to pursue this? So that was sort of number one. And number two was, do you want us to also at the same time work on scaling this back and identifying areas that we would be able to cut back to get that number into the lower range? Yes, and that's what the committee came to, but I wanted to also bring that to the board because they need to work pretty quickly and they're willing to. They know they're coming in 2 weeks and they said that they were very willing to work tirelessly for the next 2 weeks to come up with some options for us.
Josh has something.
So just to add on that, one of the key proponents that got me to start listening is with a new building, there's less interruption. So we wouldn't have all that construction in an area that we are very concerned about that construction happening when the staff and students are there learning. So it would move it up the hill. They would have it would interrupt some traffic. We know that, but it wouldn't interrupt the educational aspect during the daily basis. Which was one of the parts that really got me to start listening.
They talked about because of the difficulty with phasing. I forgot that part. Thank you. It was going to be 3 years project for that project, and this cuts it down to probably 2.
It cut considerable amount of time off.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that my brain automatically goes to is what value does the existing building have then? Can that be turned into community space? I don't know.
Yeah, that was kind of some of the brainstorming that we started doing, but then we got off track with that and said we got to figure out what we're doing with the building first. But that was, it was, do we eventually demolish it and put playing fields in? Do we want to try to keep part of it to be a community center? Do we want to sell it? Do we want to keep it? There's lots of things that will need to be discussed, but I think our urgent need right now was to figure out what are we doing in 2 weeks. Are we going to try to further the work of looking at building on site another building?
Yeah. I mean, does anybody disagree that those are the two? It doesn't make any sense to me to renovate if you can have new for the same. And
they did actually took the time to use the I don't know what those trends are that he watches with the inflation and the building trends. He said that the project in Allenstown at 32 million would be 39 million now, so that's important to mention. And that there's been about a 9% increase in building in the past 16 months. He's hoping that's going to level out a little bit in the next few years to be more like a 3 and a 4% increase each year. But clearly, the longer it goes on, the more expensive the project gets. So.
Which is the point we need to be driving home.
Right.
Yeah, big
And I
time.
think there's history of that here, right? I think that happened both with the safety center and the library. Rivers. Oh, good. I can pull Clint and make him explain it.
All right, so we are in agreement if we can get a new building and work on also reducing the scale a little bit. That's the direction they should move in for the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
I stayed after with them a little bit just to kind of like see what they needed from us. So I know that they'll be in contact with me and maybe Sandy, a couple others like next week. They really want to work on getting before the 2 weeks. So we're going to talk about like priorities. I think what part of the committee was doing some of that kind of scaling back. What are the priorities so that we could do that in addition to it. But the biggest thing for me was that going from 3 years of 3 separate phases, what they would need to do is build the gym, build classrooms inside the gym. We would live in that for like a year while they're demolishing and building other things. If they had to demolish the other buildings, then like even just having the modulars, they wouldn't be there. So it was just thinking about all the phasing of it and how it would impact kids. So.
And what's like, I don't know the right term. capacity. Like what are we looking at for like a capacity on this? And I mean, in my mind, I'm like looking out 20 years.
Teachers per grade level. And we talked about, do we cut that? And Wendy and I had exactly the same thought, like keep the larger size rooms in case we need them, but maybe we can use those for other purposes now, like divide them up a little bit to make smaller spaces so that in the future, if we need a fifth, we have the space to easily transition into that. So we're having those conversations, and Jenny brought something up too, that if we're right sizing the classrooms, and they're going to be bigger, then we could potentially relook at your board policy and see, hey, would the board be willing to go up if we needed to 2 or 3 kids per class more if we needed to increase, because you're still well under the state cap. So things like that also might. And they're starting another 60 whatever units.
If they get sewer.
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah,
so we did talk about that.
I mean, we had the spike this year. There's 93 or 83 extra students in Pembroke, the Pembroke population this year. So, one thing we have, when that argument comes, well, the population's decreasing. Well, it's not decreasing here. It may be somewhere else, but it's not here. And that's what concerns me, because the pressure that's going to come out of Concord, that eventually is going to move into the range roads where that land opens up and more houses get built. I think the way the zoning board has changed some of its rulings, that, we're going to avoid the, call it
Urban sprawl.
No, when you put a whole bunch of houses together.
Oh, like the compact zones.
Yeah. So basically they're not able to, take 15 acres of land and put 9 houses on it. Now it's got to be, spaced that.
I think I'm with you, because I think it would be a mistake to, you don't want to build a brand new building that's supposed to last for 50 years and then run out of space in 10 years.
Yeah. 20 to 30 years is, I think, what we have to, is responsible anyway. So we can't predict what's going to happen, but.
And they're going to work on giving us numbers of where you could have efficiency. So if we had a bathroom in every classroom, then we maybe share a bathroom between 2 classrooms and eliminate a bathroom. And they're going to give us prices to say, this is where you really save money when you cut these things back. So they're going to work on that for us as well.
Okay. Any other questions, comments around Hill School stuff? Yep, that's a good point. Okay.
Cluster housing.
Okay. No.
It's in there somewhere.
All right. That wraps up immediate business. So we'll move on to policies. And I know that we talked about some of these a
Yep.
while ago now.
We knocked off a lot at the last meeting, which is great. The bomb threats, I think I told you they released a new version of that, so we now need to circle back and we'll have a safety meeting to talk about that one, because they revised it. And then the nursing mothers is a new policy that's on for second reading. And then the others, there's like 6 of them that are on for a first reading. And that's because, again, new versions from legislation came out and we need to adopt the newest versions. So Ashley should have both our current policy and the new sample policy in the drive for you guys to look at. So yeah, perfect. So if you want to take a look at those, and no action tonight, but if you have any changes, I know, it's you and Melanie, right, for policy?
I'm
Oh,
working
good.
on the
Oh,
draft
oh,
one
okay, good.
with some edits and changes.
Are you using the new one?
Yeah.
Okay, good, perfect. The new release, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've
If you have some and you can get those to me, that way when we do meet with fire and police, I have your notes too. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Does anybody else have any comments or questions or any on those before we jump ahead?
read through all.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we've got another chance for public comment. I don't see any public in attendance, so we can skip that one. Informational.
I was just going to talk about that
Told Josh.
wonderful letter.
Okay, so we'll go back and do minutes. We skipped minutes in case you and Amy were able to attend. So we'll go back and do minutes of October 3rd and 17th. If there's not any changes, we can take them together.
I have one change, and I know it's super petty, but on the October 3rd one for page 6 of the minutes, there's 3 students from the Congo, not 2. And I know that's really, really petty, but
It works.
I just want to give them all the credit. You know, we got 3 of them in there. That's my only change. So I can make a motion to approve with my changes as amended.
For 10-3.
10-3.
Okay, is there a second? All right. Any other discussion on the October 3rd minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes of October 3rd as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And 17th.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any corrections on those? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes of October 17th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good. Okay, and at this time, the board has need to go into non-public session under New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small letters C, A, and K, which are the dismissal, promotion, compensation, or disciplining of an employee or the investigation of any charges against him or her. That's A. C is matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. And small letter K is consideration by a school board of entering into a student or pupil tuition contract authorized by RSA 194 or RSA 185-A smaller else next one. Roll call vote to go into non-public at 8:07. Melanie, Jean,
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
Karen,
I'm Carrie.
good. All right, Braveheart. Good.